let's get it, guys. So this is Ben Scallon talking about these scandals. So let's hear it.
Lessons will be learned. That's the classic line that we've all come to expect in Ireland whenever taxpayer money is wasted by the state. It's the old reliable catchphrase of Irish public decision makers whenever they're caught mismanaging the public purse.
Lessons need to be learned from this debacle.
The lessons have to be learned by government and will be learned.
Can lessons be learned in their delivery? Yes, I absolutely believe so, and they should be.
We do need to learn lessons.
Naturally, there'll be lessons to be learned.
But has any lesson actually been learned here at all? Because this kind of widespread waste has been going on for years in plain view of everyone, and yet the state continues to make the same incompetent blunders time and time again. From 330 grand bike shelters to
I don't even want to talk about the bike shelter anymore. That just actually gets me down. It's actually demoralizing to even talk about this bike shelter. But no, guys, I'll answer that question. You know, have there been any lessons learned? The answer is absolutely not. No lessons have been learned.
to €7 million failed IT projects, from RTE flip-flop controversies to the infamous National Children's Hospital, this country is in the midst of a decades-long string of scandalous financial failures with no apparent end in sight. This is a system in which incompetence is rewarded and where the only people who ever pay the price for state failure are people like you, the Irish tax-paying public at large. So today, we're going to look at the long-running mismanagement of Irish taxpayer money by the state, why this has been allowed to go on for so long, and what should be done about it if our leaders are serious about tackling the issue once and for all.
It's a comedy of errors. You know, it's taxpayers' money, and no one seems to worry when it's taxpayers' money. No one seems to be held accountable. No one takes their rap. It's all an 8-page report, and then it's forgotten about. But I don't think it should be forgotten about. It should be lessons learned here.
Embarrassing public finance scandals are not new to Ireland by any means. This kind of thing has been going on forever. There have been a number of such scandals in just the last couple of decades, such as the notorious 2002 voting machine fiasco, wherein the government of the day spent a whopping €54 million on electronic voting machines, which were to replace physical paper ballots in elections and referendums. According to then Taoiseach Bertie Ahern, Ireland needed to invest in these machines to avoid becoming a laughingstock on the world stage.
Well, actually, ironically enough, politics-wise, we're a laughingstock. And also, you know, voting machines are actually worse. A lot of people don't know this. Voting machines are actually worse than physical copies, okay, because there's a lot of fraud, a lot of scams. Okay, you can actually vote multiple times for different people. With your actual voting sort of paper, it's actually a lot quicker. It's just a lot better in general. So yeah, paper is better than technology. Who'd have thought it? You know, just the same way a combustion engine is better than an electric engine. God damn it. Okay, to all you Tesla lovers, Tesla's pretty sick. I do like Tesla, but it's definitely not as good as my Toyota Yaris. I don't care what anybody says. Your €300,000 electric car does not rack up to my, you know, €3,000 Yaris Toyota. I don't care what anybody says.
Our silly old system is outdated. We'll go into the 21st century in this country being the laughing stock with our stupid old pencils.
But how did that plan work out in reality? Well, an independent commission quickly found out that the machines suffered from security vulnerabilities, meaning they were unsafe to use in elections, and so in the end the units were put into storage at a cost of €3.2 million, in addition to the 51 million spent on them already, and there they sat for years.
So what's that, 55 million, 54 million in total to do nothing? They should have at least sold them back to whatever country they bought them from. I mean, God, get some money back. Jesus.
Years until they eventually became obsolete and were eventually sold for scrap metal for 70 grand. And bear in mind, we did this to avoid becoming a laughingstock on the world stage. I'll leave it up to you to decide whether that worked or not. We could all
I'll answer that one, Ben. it did not work.
Also look at the so-called Bertie Bowl project, wherein 43 million euros were spent on a stadium that never materialized and didn't even get beyond the planning stage. Or the National Aquatic Centre, which was completed in 2003 for more than double its original estimated cost, coming in at 74 million euros. It was originally believed that the Aquatic Centre would deliver an annual profit to the state, but instead, for the next decade, it actually required almost 1 million euros in public subsidies just to keep it open. So the point here is, this kind of debacle has been going on for a very long time. And that's why one major political party in this state decided that they'd had enough. They were mad as hell and they weren't going to take it anymore, as they pledged to go scorched earth on state waste and public sector inefficiency. Enter 2011 Fine Gael.
By streamlining systems, by cutting red tape, by abolishing quangos, we will reduce public service costs.
In the run-up to the 2011 general election, the then opposition party of Fine Gael was on a warpath against bureaucracy and government bloat. They took no prisoners, as they vowed to take a sledgehammer to entire state agencies, which they committed to shutting down entirely.
The smaller and better governments, with the people's money spent wisely. With our plan, when cuts are needed, they start at the top.
The Fine Gael
When cuts are needed, they absolutely do not start at the top, okay? And whenever there is a serious mishap in government, you know, whenever there's millions spent needlessly, it's never actually, there's never any cuts or anything like that. Or if there's a security breach, like, for instance, that guy that got stabbed the last day, he was like a sexual offender. The guy that killed Ashley Murphy, he was also a sexual offender. There's never anyone that's held accountable for that. Like, if I was in charge, I'd be like, well, who's the guy that led him through, who's the guy that let him through the damn security at the airport? Like, is there any background checks, like, on anybody? It's just, like, free-for-all. So, yeah, people should get fired. They should go to jail. Like, if you let a killer into the country, you should go to jail. Like, if you steal from the country, if you make really bad decisions that cost the taxpayers 50 million, 100 million, 700 million, 800 million euro, you should go to jail, or you should be reprimanded in some way. Your job should be lost. At least the bare minimum, your pay should be cut. I mean, who's paying for the 55 million? I mean, your pay should be cut, lads. I feel like I'm speaking a different language some of the time. Like, I literally said in the last video, 90% of the people in this country, and it's all on the left, let's be honest, guys. The people on the left are just, it's not even common sense anymore. It's just like, stupidity. It's like they want to see the world burn, like Batman,
Manifesto that year promised a, quote, smaller, better, less expensive government, and promised a number of radical cost-saving measures. They pledged to, quote, cut the size of the public service by at least 10%, including a 1/3 cut in the number of politicians and staff in government departments. They pledged to, quote, cut the number of public bodies by 145, ending the confusing and wasteful fragmentation and duplication in service delivery.
I'm just guessing that didn't happen. Fine Gael's 2011 general election pledges, I'm sure that they actually probably increased it by 145 people. I mean, I'm sure they probably increased it by a ton of people, and they didn't cut anything. They probably increased the government expenditure.
And they pledged to pin down accountability for results at every level of the public service, from ministers down, with clear consequences for success and failure.
We badly need a Doge that Elon Musk has set up for Trump. We badly need that, guys, in Ireland, because there's brown envelopes through the GAA. I mean, there's just so much corruption. And we're actually the 17th most corrupt country in the world when it comes to statistics. They measure it like that. 17th, not with like crime. Crime. We're getting up there for sure. In Europe, we're very, very high, but yeah, with actual like corruption, it's just like insane, so
they made it crystal clear to voters that state efficiency was high on Fine Gael's agenda. They ran on a platform of eliminating frivolous spending and dramatically reducing the number of quangos and superfluous state agencies in existence. And it was on this platform that they won that year's election, sweeping to power and forming a government with a strong public mandate behind their policies. And so at this point we have to ask the question, what happened to those policies? Did Fine Gael deliver and eviscerate the unnecessary quangos as they had promised? Well, I'll let independent TD and future Minister Shane Ross explain.
I do not understand what's happened to the apparent cull of the quangos. The rhetoric about the quangos before the election was extraordinarily strong, very populist, and realistic and practical. Now, Taoiseach, look, do you remember this document, Streamlining Government, Fine Gael, which talked about cutting costs? It talked about the 2,200 directors of quangos. It talked about removing them. It talked about, in fine rhetoric, Ireland having become the land of 1,000 quangos. Now we're talking about the reduction of only 50. And some of those are merely mergers, not to mention the ones you've already created. So the number of reduction in quangos here is going to be minuscule.
And indeed, minuscule it was. The plan to cut state waste and bloat ultimately amounted to very little in terms of practical action, and the very next Fine Gael manifesto in 2016 didn't even mention the word quango once. Within a single election cycle, they abandoned that crusade entirely, which is how they went from talking like this.
There's definitely a need for a democratic revolution in this country. That means a bonfire of the quangos. I'm sure we can abolish at least half of the 400 quangos.
To talking like this.
I'd like us to get to a point where the phrase quango is no longer pejorative. Good work does happen in state agencies.
Never trust a man with a lisp. Okay, just putting that out there.
Have opened up new state agencies in the last year alone. This manifesto, which we're currently preparing, won't be recommending the closure of agencies that have only just been set up.
So other than a brief bit of flirting with the concept in 2011, there has been almost no political appetite in recent years for an overhaul of Irish state efficiency. The issue seems to have largely dropped off the radar of politicians. But that doesn't mean the problem has gone away. Issues around waste continue to emerge on a regular basis, and some of these scandals are so ridiculous that they'd almost be funny if you weren't the one paying for them.
Yeah, and like that's the whole thing, man. Like honestly, like, you know, I don't really, you know, a lot of the different topics I touch on this channel, obviously County Gains, we've basically just turned into a news report channel. Welcome to County Gains, me, my flags, my flippin', you know, whatever, my bullshit that I have on the wall behind me, my college degree up there. We have just turned into a sort of a government efficiency, sort of delving into, well, I mean, reacting to different things, but giving my thoughts on it. Sort of a news report channel, okay? It's just ridiculous, guys, because the amount of content coming out of, the political scene in the last year has just been, absurd, guys. It's just been astronomical and absurd. But yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. The spending, and one of the main points of why I started this channel is like this unnecessary spending that this country does, guys. And I'm not cheapskate, okay? I actually buy stuff if it's actually good, but I also like hanging on to stuff like my car. It's for, 2000, it's an older car, Toyota, okay, but it still runs just fine. Why do I need to buy a brand new car? It's like the state, like if they don't need to purchase all this new stuff, they can just stay with the old stuff,
There are smaller scale failures, such as the infamous Monster Ink Leinster House printer in 2019. This printer was purchased for 800 grand, only for state employees to realise that it was too big to fit into the room it was earmarked for. So a further 230 grand had to be spent on just getting it into the building. And then on the...
Lads, I mean, this is just complete lack of failure from top down. There's just no sort of organization, I think one of the main things that a government needs, and this is why other governments are really good, because their organizational skills, the logistics are just amazing. Like, nobody talks to anybody here. It's just ridiculous.
A further 230 grand had to be spent on just getting it into the building. And then on the other side of the scale, there are full-blown financial disasters, such as the ongoing National Children's Hospital debacle, a project that was supposed to cost 800 million euros and is now soaring past 2 billion with no end in sight.
2.2 billion. Like, oh man, it's actually just comical. I just think some of the stuff is just comical, and nobody ever, thinks to call them out or say anything about it. It's just like, it's fine, unbelievable.
So the question is, why does this keep happening, both with major projects like hospitals down to relatively minor projects like printers? What is actually going on here? Well, to answer this question, I think a perfect case study is to look at something like the 2023 RTE financial scandal and see how that was handled by the government. As was widely reported at the time, the Irish state broadcaster found itself embroiled in a massive scandal over secret payments that it had made to top presenters in a secretive fashion.
Like, how you wouldn't think that RTE is secretly funding and secretly paying top presenters is just beyond me. I mean, that's kind of a given, because you have people that you've never heard of being promoted. You know, if they go along with the agenda, basically, you know, if they go along with that sort of RT propaganda, then they get promoted. You know, you'll never get fired. You know, if you stay with the same sort of, but if you mention something outside the line, if you say, hey, you know, you guys shouldn't have probably spent that much on the bike shed. Oh, you're not getting promoted, you know, because you're not going along with it. Whereas before, the media used to be amazing. The media used to be great back in the early 2000s, even a little bit maybe before. They used to critique, you know, certain things in the government. They used to critique what's going on. But now the media is just completely it's actually run. It's not even corrupt. It's just run by the government. Like, you know, it's just open about it as well. You know, so it's completely absurd. You know, media is just crazy now. Obviously, they're getting funded with €725 million. Like RT, like at least Grip, they're kind of self-funded. You know, they sell T-shirts, they sell mugs, you know, hats. Oh no, they don't sell hats. They don't sell. I keep messing that up. What the hell, dude? They don't sell hats, but they sell everything like that. I sell merch as well. I just brought out brand new merch like 5 minutes ago. So, you know, I'm self-funded. Why the hell can't the biggest TV show in the country be self-funded? You know, it seems absurd.
Scandal over secret payments that it had made to top presenters in a secretive fashion. The RTE chair at the time said that she believed the payments had been recorded in a way that was intended to deceive.
As a trained accountant and a former financial controller, I am appalled as to how payments were recorded and presented in the RTE accounts. It appears to me that this was an act designed to deceive.
RTE's chief financial officer even told the Public Accounts Committee that he believed the taxpayer was defrauded by RTE's conduct.
Well, it's concealment and deception.
And would you not determine that to be fraud? Wrongfully known?
It depends who the fraud is against, if anyone.
This guy was so disingenuous. Let's use that word. He didn't even know what he was earning last year. They just straight up asked him, hey mate, you're like you're the accountant. How much did you earn last year? Oh, I don't know. Like, I know what I earned last year. I have like, you know, 4 or 5 different incomes. Like, I have a bunch of different incomes. Like, not that much. Of course, this guy's earning, I think he said he was earning like 220,000. Of course, I'm not earning that much, but it's like, dude, like, do you not have a team of people to help you? Like, a lot of people say, oh, well, why don't they audit Donald Trump? Oh, why don't they audit Donald Trump? Donald Trump is worth like 10 billion. He's like literally runs the world pretty much of America. He has like a team of accountants that do it for him. Why isn't a guy that's earning 250,000 in Ireland, why doesn't he have his own personal accountant? Like, if he's like, and he is himself a finance guy as well, but it's like, you know, that's so disingenuous. Your job is to take care of money. Your job is literally money, and you don't know how much you earned last year. I know how much I earned. Like, come on, lads, this is just this it's a joke at this stage, man. People should be fined, you know, arrested. Like, it should be some sort of like inquiry at least. And this was the biggest inquiry ever, you know, and then. Good, rightly so, Ryan Tubridy retired after this inquiry because he was seen to be embezzling money, taking a little off the top, taking a little off the top, you know, a little scoop of ice cream off the top. He was taking the shit, guys, right? He was taking money off the embezzling money. They were like, we paid you an extra 70,000 last year. And then Ryan Tubridy's like, no, I didn't know about the extra 70,000. I just thought it was just, you know, when, you know, I don't know about you guys, but when 70,000 appears in my bank account, I don't just instantly think, oh, well, that's just normal. You know, it's obviously a big bonus from somewhere, guys. It's obviously somebody is paying for that, and he didn't declare it, and then, you know, it's just insane.
Has lost out. I mean, you could say the tax. My own opinion is maybe the taxpayer was
defrauded.
It later came to light that RTE had spent thousands of euros in taxpayer money on flip-flops and concert tickets, and that they had wasted millions of euros on a failed toy show musical that nobody wanted to see. So, given the sheer magnitude of this revelation, you would naturally expect that such an organization would suffer some kind of penalty for this misbehavior, right? But of course, that's not what happened. Instead of being punished or penalized, the politicians turned around and bailed out RTE with 725 million euros of taxpayer money, and they defended this move by saying that the organization would be making some changes to its internal culture going forward, which...
That means nothing. Changes to our internal culture. So basically the guy embezzled money, you know, completely just crazy. So the chief financial officer, insane, right? And then they get, not only do they get, you know, not fined, but they actually get rewarded. You know, and this is, not to be going off too, crazy conspiratorial, but, you know, this is the whole thing about the, when 9/11 happened. You know, in 9/11, you know, you thought, because there was a massive, and we can just take it from an Irish perspective. Let's just take it from an Irish perspective. Like I said, someone gets stabbed, the guy shouldn't have been here, whatever, he's a sexual predator, he's a criminal guy, he has a drug background, whatever. Like, should they not, the guy that was supposed to be, you know, head of security, if something happens, then he should be reprimanded for that. That's his duty, that's his job, to actually, you know, report back on these crimes and keep people out of the country. Well, if you're not doing your job correctly, you get fired. You know, same way if I don't do my job correctly, I get fired. So, yeah, it's just absurd, man.
Which is just another way of saying lessons will be learned.
RTE wasted the public's money for years and showed zero accountability, and your government's response to that particular scandal is to hand them another several hundred million euros in taxpayer money as a reward for being wasteful and negligent effectively. How could you possibly look the people of Ireland in the eye and defend that situation?
We are seeing reforms implemented. I think we have to value public service media. Our RTE provide a vital service there.
They actually don't, guys. RTE do not provide a public service like we provide a public service. Like, I'm a public service. I serve the people. I serve you. I only do this because I have thousands of views every day on my political videos. I'm not going to do it otherwise. But people want to hear the truth. You know, when you flick on RTE News, guys, they're not telling you the truth. They're telling you their slant, which their slant is not correct. Me, I just report the news. I don't create the news like these news platforms. You understand? There's a difference. I don't create the news. I just report the news. You understand? Yes, absolutely. You understand.
What kind of moral hazard do you think is created by the fact that you can, as a state body, be incredibly reckless and irresponsible with the people's money? And then after that becomes a massive controversy and people are infuriated, you come out of that situation with more money than you went in. Do you not think that that creates a kind of a bad lesson maybe to send to not only RTE but other semi-state bodies?
I think the lesson is you need to change, you need to reform.
After that, we had the infamous Leinster House bike shelter, in which a small structure on government land ended up running the taxpayer €336,000 and was only able to partially shelter 36 bikes from the rain, and poorly at that. So not what most people would call value for money, I think it's fair to say. And yet, a week after that scandal broke, we had senior government figures saying they still didn't know who had signed off on the decision, and literally physically running away when asked about it.
The infamous bike shed, which has been obviously featuring in the news for the last couple of weeks, do we know who signed off on that decision or what the situation was there exactly?
I don't, and I think that...
Let's play that once more. So just plain and simple, the infamous bike shed, €350,000 was spent. Who signed off on that? Who is responsible for that? Okay, you are the head of the country. Who did this massive F up? Who did this huge screw up? And he says, just plain and simple, straight between the eyes, I don't. Well, if you don't and you run the country, who knows? Who knows about it if you don't know? You run the country. Yeah, it's just demoralizing. That bike shed actually just gets on my nerves. I can't even talk about that anymore without just freaking out and wanting to flip and jump off the flipping river. Like, just insane, guys. Like, €350,000, you don't know who signed off on that. Well, I mean, what if it's like in his pocket? What if like half that money, what if like, he spent 30,000 of it on the bike shed, which he probably did, and then 300,000 is in his pocket. Like, what if that's the case? Like, oh, come on.
The infamous bike shed, which has been obviously featuring in the news for the last couple of weeks. Do we know who signed off on that decision or what the situation was there exactly?
I don't, and I think that will come before the Public Accounts Committee and that will be examined.
But is that not just a matter of making a phone call and seeing whose name is on the purchase order?
No,
I mean, well,
yeah, I was gonna say, right? That's just this purchase orders, like a buyer and sell. If you guys work in sales, like if you guys work any business, if you're an entrepreneur, the selling order right there, the buying order, who bought the materials, etc., like, just plain and simple. And then he starts getting aggressive, I think, because he just asked a question. It's just like, dude, like, somebody should be reprimanded for that. It's obviously a massive failure of, like, you know, taxpayer money, right? It's just, people don't understand how bad this is. This is just, like, huge. Like, I mean, they probably spent the money on, like, pints or something. You don't know. They could have spent the money on anything. Who knows? God knows. God probably doesn't even know.
Making a phone call and seeing whose name is on the purchase order. I mean, why isn't it though? I mean, that seems like a relatively straightforward thing to find out.
It's straightforward too, but I've no doubt it's important to go through properly. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. We're getting wet.
All right.
Thank you. All right.
To this very day, we still don't know the name of the person responsible for that decision, and nobody lost their job over it, so whoever they are, they're still probably working at the Office of Public Works, signing off on decisions of hundreds of thousands of euros as we speak.
Like, it's a collectivism. Like, people protect their own, right? So, like, okay, I'm the CEO, I hire a guy to do a job, he makes a monumental fuck up, you know what I mean? He should be absolutely fired, like, probably sued, like you can't be making screw ups like that big, right? Instead, he's probably promoted because then he doesn't look bad. You know, he actually goes on to probably a better and bigger position. That's what they do. They kind of shift people around. So then there's a new person in that position, right? So it's just you know, bait and switch. You know, they bait you in. Oh yeah, this guy did it, and then we still don't know. If I actually thought we found out who did that, so Ben's telling us here we actually don't know. Oh my god, like, how do we not know who did the bike shed, lads? Like, come on, man. This is absurd, man.
Even the minister responsible for the OPW didn't take any responsibility whatsoever.
The first that I became aware of the bike shed was when I read it off of the media. I wasn't responsible for it. I didn't approve monies for it because that's not the role of the Minister of State.
And most recently...
And they're just passing the buck. Oh, I didn't do it. Oh, I didn't do it either. And then your man's like, it's like that Spider-Man meme. Like, you did it. No, you did. Like, you signed off on this, but I didn't sign off on this. It's like, it's like they're trying to basically, you know, pass the buck. They're like trying to confuse the people. Like, they're trying to confuse everyone. So even I'm confused. I thought they actually found out the guy was. Now they don't know who the guy was. It's like,
the Arts Council was found to have wasted around 7 million euros on setting up an IT system that was never completed, and the loss was flagged in 2024, but somehow the full details only emerged after the general election that year, which is just a coincidence, I'm sure. And bear in mind that these are just the scandals we know about. These are the ones that have come to light. But does anyone seriously think that there aren't more financial scandals in departments waiting under the surface that have yet to be uncovered? The HSE has an annual budget of 21.6 billion euros. Do we think all of that money is being spent efficiently? The Department of Education has a budget of 11.8 billion, and they just wasted 9 million euros on phone pouches. Do we think that's the only scandal at the Department of Education of this nature? I think it's fair to assume that there are probably dozens, if not hundreds, or maybe even thousands of scandals like this that are just yet to be uncovered, and they probably won't be uncovered because it's not in the interest of anyone in power to blow the whistle on themselves.
The RTE could be just one of many organisations where we have this kind of a culture internally. Would that be your view?
It is, and it is a culture, so it's very difficult to root out a culture. You can be sure that because of the amount of money involved here, it has come to light. Because of the poor governance in RTE, it has come to light. But right across agencies and the spend of public money, there are issues. There's issues in local government. Poor spend, poor value for money, no accountability. That's how I see it. And I see the same thing in various departments. You can take the current issue of migration and see what's being spent. And it won't be until 5 years' time that we look back and say, my God, how did a country do that? That particular department has no governance. Has very poor management, and it too needs to be examined. But that's just one in a whole list of agencies, organisations that have come before committees that have shown poor governance and poor spend for taxpayers' money that are just not being examined. I think we have to look at radical solutions to this problem. Otherwise, we're just going to have the same old again, and the status quo will just remain. The country can't afford the status quo any longer, and that's why I would call on the government to ensure that the radical reform that's necessary in RTE and the other organisations where we know that is needed, that it be introduced, implemented, and that we put the Committee of Public Accounts then on the right footing with the Controller and Auditor General.
The common theme here is that nobody gets blamed for anything, nobody is held directly personally responsible. It's a bailout culture in which nobody is punished for wrongdoing or mistakes with inexorable consequences. Simon Harris even said that he doesn't want to personalise such investigations to any individual. But if you...
Yeah, so that's actually probably the most egregious thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, dude, he's saying that he doesn't want to personally investigate anybody, but, you know, if me or you were to defraud somebody, let's say we fraudulently spend, you know, let's say $3,500, because that's, you know, what, 1/100th of the amount. Let's say 35,000 or 3,500 of somebody's money. If we frauded them out of that money, you'd go to jail. But because it's done in the state, it's 10 times that amount or 100 times that amount of money that I just said, it's perfectly fine. It's just ridiculous.
Personalize such investigations to any individual. But if you worked for a private company and you made a mistake that cost that company a fortune, you would be held personally and individually responsible. That's how life works. We are all responsible for our own decisions and our own mistakes. And by not punishing failure, we guarantee that more failure will inevitably arise in the future. Public Accounts Committee member Mark McSharry said it best.
Somebody was asking about the identity of who signed off or some aspect of it, and you said, look, I'm very conscious that I want to treat civil servant with the dignity and respect that they deserve at work, and I do.
I mean, it's not dignity and respect. They're dignified and they're respected at work. And this is, again, just low IQ people. It's nothing to do with that. It's not that we don't respect or think that they have a sense of dignity when they make these mistakes. It's just that when you kill someone, when you hurt somebody, when you defraud somebody, you are responsible for that mistake. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Like, you know, you have to be held accountable for that stuff. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous.
Don't wish to individualize it.
You have to individualize things in life. I mean, the people in government are just, I think they're just Marxist people. They don't want to, you know, take basically they don't want to hold people accountable because, you know, maybe they might be held accountable themselves one day. You know, they might have skeletons in their closet, you know, to do with money or etc. And they don't want to get caught out someday either. So very, very crazy. This is unbelievable, you know.
Can I suggest to you that this is the problem? Because you want to treat people with the respect that they deserve and dignity at work and so on, we want to treat the taxpayers with respect that they deserve. But when I asked your predecessor, was there a disciplinary process afoot because of that absolute Maths 101 mistake? He said no, it's not a disciplinary issue. In fact, when I asked your former boss at the Department of Public Expenditure, why was there not a disciplinary process? Number one, he didn't even know what had occurred, the Museum Plaza thing. And number two, and these were his words, we don't operate a gotcha culture in the civil service. So the administrative merry-go-round goes round.
What does that even mean? Like, that actually doesn't even mean anything. We don't operate a got you. I mean, guys, like, that's like the police saying if you murdered somebody, no, you know, we don't want to being like, we got you. Like, no, that's like your job as a detective, as like a person. Like, you have to be finding these people so they don't do it again. The person could have done it illegally. Now I'm sure, you know, the person probably did it by mistake. I mean, they probably have no, I'm pretty sure it's just done by blind stupidity. I don't think it was done on purpose. You know, I don't think they were defrauding and, you know, spending it on purpose, that amount of money on purpose. But if they're that stupid, like, they shouldn't be in a position of power. I mean, it's clearly not their position. They should be fired. You know what I mean? No matter if it's done intentionally or done by accident because you're just stupid and incompetent. You know, either way, guys, you should be held accountable for it. I mean, it's like murdering someone or hurting somebody and then saying, well, you know, I didn't mean to do it. Okay, well, you're still responsible for manslaughter. Okay, it's not a first degree murder, but you're still responsible for manslaughter. You still unintentionally killed the guy. You know what I mean? Let's say in a murder case. So very odd, man. The wording that's used is just unbelievable.
But you've said constantly today, an appropriate procurement process took place in line with the rules. What is missing here is cop on, basic common sense. In fact, you're going to waste more money now by getting an external auditor in to make sure you're doing what you want to do. And I think because of what you said, sadly, because of our practice, that let's cover everybody's ass, or put another way, give people with dignity and respect that they want, provided they're on this side of the table. But if they're on that side of the table, i.e. the people pulling up the cash, we have no respect for them.
That's really well said. I mean, that's about as well, you know, said as you can say it, honestly. Yeah, it's like saying, well, you know, we want to treat this murderer, this this really bad guy, we want to treat him with a level of dignity and respect. You know, I know he did murder kids and he did, you know, abuse people and, you know, all this type of stuff, but we got to treat him with respect. I mean, it's not disrespectful to pursue a crime. It's not disrespectful for somebody to pursue and put somebody in jail and treat them like a dog in terms of the law. I mean, I don't think you should be, whatever, you know, beating people up, sort of street justice. That's not, you know, but you can put people in jail and put them in, you know, solitary confinement. Like, you can do stuff, right, to people that do bad things. Same with this person. You can put them in, you know, you can fire them at the very least. You know, you can treat them badly if they do a massive screw up, guys. I mean, if a doctor kills somebody at work accidentally, I mean, that's treated as so, you know. It's not disrespectful to pursue a crime, man. It's just crazy.
Give people with dignity and respect that they want, provided they're on this side of the table. But if they're on that side of the table, i.e. the people pulling up the cash, we have no respect for them.
So he's saying like that, you know, if you don't pay your taxes, you're going to be screwed basically in this country. You can go to jail and stuff like that. So, and so you should, like, if you don't pay taxes, I mean.
So the outcome of this will be what's always the outcome after 22 experience. You're all going to blame it on systemic failure and on the merry-go-round, to the next security hut.
Winter has arrived in Gaza. The nights are cold, and thousands of children have nothing to protect them from the harsh winter. But we're...
Hey, I like that one. County Gaines, quote me on that one. Write that in the chat. Somebody write that in the chat. They couldn't run a security hut. I said, hold up. They need to forget about security huts. They couldn't run a Pizza Hut. A shout out to Pizza Hut as well. We love Pizza Hut. I think they're all actually gone. I used to go to Pizza Hut in Dublin, but it was good pizza. Anyhow, let's keep it going.
Well, I must say, no lessons have been learned in the OPW. None whatsoever.
At what stage does this go beyond the small team and somebody in the OPW says, this is a completely inappropriate price that we're paying? When does that happen?
After the Public Accounts Committee, usually.
This is how the system works. The mistakes are always the same, the excuses are always the same, nobody ever gets fired, and there's always more public money to burn. Governments around the world are making new efforts to slash waste. The EU is starting to question whether money spent on campaigning NGOs is legitimate. America has a new Department of Government Efficiency, which is looking at eliminating sources of excessive spending. But the same willingness does not appear to be present in Ireland to get to grips with this problem.
They have a very different view regarding the role of government. The approach that's been taken in other parts of the world, it's really challenging whether government has a role at all in some areas of society.
I don't think we're at that place in Ireland.
The only way this changes is if the public at large demand it changes and demand real accountability from our leaders. The government doesn't need to think long and hard about what they should do. They already know what to do because they told us over a decade ago they were going to do it. You could, for example, ensure that civil servants and politicians face real consequences for wasteful spending by threatening them with firings or salary reductions or clawbacks. You could make departments personally accountable for losses by having bonuses tied to performance, or any number of other solutions. But we have to do something. Until and unless the public insists on higher governance standards, the only lesson that will be learned is that rank incompetence pays in this country.
Let no more politicians stand up and say lessons have been learned. As soon as a politician or a minister says a lesson has been learned, the public think that's it, business as usual. Nothing will be learned and everything will continue as it was. And that does harm to the public's belief in the public services that we have. When there's no consequences for disgusting overspends of public money.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And then Grip saying Ireland's real public service broadcaster. I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. And, you know, not for nothing, I like Gript. I don't think they go far enough. I know they're probably, you know, withheld by lots of regulations and stuff. They're actually a public. I'm pretty sure they're registered as well. Obviously, I'm not registered with any sort of you know, media broadcaster in Ireland. But yeah, I think that they don't even go far enough. I think they should be more harsh. But you know, of course, there's guidelines and stuff like that, but not for me. I can say what the fuck I want, unless YouTube obviously do something about it. But you know, I think I'm keeping within the guidelines. Yeah, unbelievable. I liked Ben Scallon a lot there. Devilishly handsome man, great guy, great speaker. Kind of giving it to us straight there. I like that, guys. Yeah, it was really, really good.